Thank you all for joining us today to learn more about how charter schools can access competitive federal grants outside of the Charter Schools Program, or CSP. Each year, the federal government funds millions of dollars in competitive grants, and charter schools that are their own LEAs are eligible to apply for many of the same grants as traditional school districts. In fact, a number of charter school networks are already leveraging these resources to create new opportunities for the students and communities that they serve. Today, we're going to spend some time talking about two competitive federal grants that charter schools have already taken advantage of: the Supporting Effective Educator Development Grant Program, or SEED, and the Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program, TSL or TSLIP. We are so fortunate to be joined today by representatives from two charter networks that have recently received these grants. First, we have Dr. Burak Yilmaz. He's the Director of Leadership Development at Harmony Public Schools, which recently received a grant from the Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program. And Tamara Chang is the Senior Director of Grants Management at the KIPP Foundation, which recently received funding from the Supporting Effective Educator Development Grant Program, or SEED. I'm going to start by letting each of them introduce themselves. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what your roles are? And let's start with Burak.
Thanks, Fiona. Hi, my name is Burak Yilmaz. I work for Harmony Public Schools in Texas as the Director of Leadership Development. I have served in education for almost 20 years. I started as a math teacher and then worked in school leadership roles. I was a turnaround school principal in Kansas City for a small charter operator before joining Harmony. After working as a high school principal during my first year at Harmony, I moved to central administration as a project director for Harmony's Race to the Top district grants back in 2013. That marked the beginning of my career as a grant executive, because for the past 11 years, I have been the primary lead at my organization for several competitive grant programs, including Race to the Top, Teacher Incentive Funds, Education Innovation Research, and Teacher and School Leader Incentive Grants. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And Tamara?
Thanks, Fiona. Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara. I'm the Senior Director of Grants Management at KIPP. And before KIPP, I worked at the University of California, San Francisco, where I was a contracts and grants officer managing federal grants for the university, primarily grants from the National Institutes of Health. And I was hired by KIPP about 8 years ago to help them manage the grants that they were getting from the Department of Education. And so I've been at KIPP for about 8 years now, and my primary function is to oversee federal grants that we get from the Department of Education, as well as philanthropic grants from our partners and donors.
Great. Thanks so much. Thank you both for being here today. So now let's dive into these grants. Could each of you start by telling us what these grants are and why your networks chose to apply for them? So starting with Brock, could you tell us about your TSL grant and why you chose to apply?
Sure. So TSL, as you said, is the Teacher and School Leader Incentive Program. It is a competitive discretionary grant awarded directly by the U.S. Department of Education. The purpose of TSL grant is to improve student outcomes, as with most grants, with systemic changes or improvements to your organization's human capital management system, specifically by means of incentivizing high-performing educators through performance-based compensation awards and offering career advancement pathways. The program aims to both attract and retain high-quality talent through the use of incentives and various methods of professional learning supports. And that's what we've been doing with our TSL grant at Harmony.
Great, thank you. And Tamara, I understand that KIPP has had a number of federal grants. Could you tell us a little bit about your SEED grant, as well as some of what the other main grants are that your organization has received?
Sure. SEED, as Fiona mentioned, stands for Supporting Effective Educator Development, and its purpose is to increase the number of high-quality, effective educators by supporting the implementation of evidence-based practices that prepare, develop, or enhance the skills of educators. So at KIPP, we applied for SEED to support our school leadership development program. Other grants at KIPP that we've also received is Investing in Innovation, or I3. And again, it's another evidence-based grant where you show proof of concept to a program or project at your organization, and the government will give funding to scale that proof of concept. And so that was what the I3 grant was as well. In addition to that, in support of growth and expansion, KIPP is also a recipient of a charter school program or CSP grant. Specifically, we apply under the Charter Management Organization competition, and that provides startup funding for new schools or expanding schools. So either you are founding a brand new charter school, or you are adding seats or grades to an expanding school. So those are kind of the three main federal grants that KIPP has received in the past: SEED for educator development, the I3 Innovation Grant, which is scaling like a promising practice, and then CSP, which is for charter school startup and expansion.
Thanks for that, Tamara. I'd like to go over to you now, Burak. I'd like to hear a little bit about the impact of this grant for you at Harmony. So what were the projects that you funded with this grant, and how do you think this project is impacting the students and communities you serve?
Sure. I think it's important to note that when we started our journey with these grant programs, we always thought about how we can build upon our successes and accomplishments to improve our growth areas as the grant program was maturing. So that allowed us to approach each grant cycle with innovative ideas that would expand our current and past accomplishments to solve new challenges. So to go back to your question, here's an example. With our Race to the Top program, we've implemented personalized learning projects, including project-based learning, blended learning. And towards the end of our Race to the Top grant, we realized two things. One, we were doing some amazing things to personalize the learning of students, but we weren't doing the same thing for the adults in our organization. And that gave us the idea of investing in personalized professional learning, which formed the basis of our next grant application for teacher incentive funds. The second thing we noted was our Race to the Top grant was focusing only on secondary grade levels, and we had a robust PBL curriculum and implementation for middle and high schools. We were compelled to scale this approach at the elementary level all the way down to kindergarten. And that gave us the idea of applying for an EIR, which is Education Innovation Research. And I think it is the newly designed I3 after it was discontinued. So that mid-phase grants to bring some of these amazing learning experiences to our elementary kiddos. With TIF grants, we designed one of the earliest performance-based compensation systems in our state. We also pioneered a new personalized professional learning and career advancement system via micro-credentials. We improved our teacher evaluation system. We created a new instructional coaching program. We added a bunch of new teacher leadership roles and expanded our career ladders. And after TIF, we transitioned to the new TSL program. And in TSL, we shifted our focus to school leaders. We were able to redesign our leader evaluation system, rolled out a principal coaching and mentorship program for both new principals and assistant principals. We created a new performance-based compensation system for school leaders and instructional leadership teams. And we've expanded our career pathway offerings to include additional leadership roles for school administrators. So those have been some of the projects we've rolled out under these programs.
That sounds like a lot of projects there. So Tamara, same question to you. What has been the impact of receiving these grants, and what are some of the projects you funded with them?
Sure. Well, with CSP, I mean, the obvious impact of that is we're able to use that startup funding to open new KIPP schools and serve more communities and more underserved students that have asked for a KIPP school. So that is the immediate impact to CSP is really to start new charters, high quality charter schools. With SEED, I think the impact of that is really, there's a rigorous evaluation requirement as part of the grant. And I think the impact of that is really taking a look at our long established leadership development program and looking at what are the actual impacts that the program had. And we always have the spirit of continuous improvement. What are the areas of improvement that we could put into our leadership development program? So I think the real impact of that grant was giving us the opportunity and the resources to really study in a really rigorous way what direct impact our program was having on our students and our communities.
And staying with you, Tamara, what do you think are some of the things that you've accomplished that would not have been possible if you hadn't received a seed grant, for example?
Yeah, I think scale, right? I think, as I mentioned before, a lot of these grants was funding a program that was already established so for seed specifically, it was our leadership development program for founding leaders. So kind of almost connected to CST, training individuals to go out and open a brand new charter school. And then the other program it was funding was what we call successor prep. So training a assistant principal within a school that was undergoing a school leader transition, preparing that assistant or AP to become the new school leader. And I think, you know, the impact of that was it really looked at the research looked at the selection process and our selection matrix and what qualities go into like a good school leader, and looked at KIPP's readiness criteria of it studied like what are the qualities and readiness metrics that you need in an effective school leader, especially someone who's a first-time school leader, either in founding a new school or transitioning from AP assistant principal to principal. So that was like the real impact was like really studying rigorously our tools in our program and what effective leadership development looks like in comparing schools at KIPP that had a leader that went through that program in comparison to a school that had a leader that didn't. So that was really what was so helpful of having that grant.
Yeah, thanks for that. And same question to you, Brock. What do you feel like you've accomplished with your TSL grant that would not have been possible without those funds?
Yeah, so pretty much all the projects in our grants, including TSL, allowed us to significantly improve the way we support teachers and school leaders. We've seen very strong gains in educator retention, especially the retention of our high-performing teachers and leaders. We started attracting better quality teachers, but I think the most important impact of these grant programs was when the state of Texas rolled out a new program called Teacher Incentive Allotments. It is a model for the nation. This was a groundbreaking project from our commissioner with the vision of creating a realistic pathway to a six-figure salary for the state's most effective teachers. But there was a catch. Only districts who are already implementing a performance-based compensation system for multiple years are eligible for this allotment. So this initiative was released back in 2018. And at the time, only about 20 school districts across Texas was eligible. And Texas has more than 1,200 public school districts. So that's less than 2% eligible districts. So these grant programs helped us sustain our performance-based compensation system with additional state funds. No burden on our operating budgets. That was, I think, a huge accomplishment. Other accomplishments, our micro-credentialing and career pathways program has been phenomenal in building relevant competencies in whatever career aspirations our educators have, which results in more ready and more satisfied educators when they take on new roles within the organization. Especially with our EIR grants, we were able to create makerspace labs in most of our elementary schools. So now Harmony students as young as 5, 6 years old are able to use 3D printers, build robots, fly drones, and they're also equipped with many other tech skills to impress their families and community members. So that's some great feedback we receive from the parents and communities we serve. But perhaps the most rewarding impact we've seen is in our students. We have multiple years of external program evaluation reports from reputable research organizations, and many of these were grant requirements. But those research organizations and their reports show this. Harmony students who remain in our schools for 5 consecutive years. They start off below grade level compared to national norms, but after 5 consecutive years of Harmony education, they outperform their peers in national averages with statistical significance. And this was measured from 2015 to 2020 through NWA map. Another data point we have from our external evaluators, after implementing TSL grant from 2020 to 2023 in our first cycle, Harmony students' historic performance in state testing peaked during the year 2019. It was the best year in terms of state test results. Then the pandemic happened, and after the pandemic, just like all other schools across the nation, our student performance dropped badly, but we strategically used our TSL grants to support our teachers and school leaders to optimize learning recovery through TSL. And by the end of the TSL grants in 2023, at the end of the first cycle, our student performance in state tests exceeded our previous all-time highs in 2019. So this is a testament to our TSL grant program, which heavily focused on instructional leadership, coaching, mentoring, and data-driven instructional practices, and many more best practices, mostly powered by the TSL grant.
Yeah, that sounds like it's been a huge impact. I have one more question for you all. Why should other charter schools consider applying for grants like these two that we're talking about, or about other competitive federal grants? Like, what would make it worthwhile, you think, for a leader to apply? And I'll go to Tamara first.
I think for KIPP specifically, I think it was the opportunity to fund a real evaluation study to really look at the impact that this programming was having on our students in school. So that was like the main focus. The other focus, reason is, mentioned before, is we know we have a proven intervention or a program, and we would love to bring it to scale it up, either take it to even more cohorts or have it encompass like other subject matters other than the one we're focused on. And just because of funding, we aren't able to like scale up to the level we would love to see. So I think those are, for KIPP, those were like the two, if I was to summarize. I think having that rigorous external evaluator was very validating to look at the impact KIPP was having. And then the second is, again, the opportunity to scale something that we really believed in.
Yeah, so it sounds like resources, but also just having external validation of the work that you're doing. Burak, same question. Why should other leaders consider applying for grants like these?
I think the motivation is out there. For one, all charters are strapped for funding. Providing a high quality education is costly. Supporting teachers and leaders is very costly. But if we don't find ways to improve our curriculum, improve our teaching practices, improve our leadership skills, we may lose our best people, and we may also lose trust of the families and communities we serve. So applying for grants, it shouldn't be just about the money, of course. It should be about sincere intentions to bring positive change and engage in continuous improvement cycles. And I think we can only achieve this with innovative ideas. But unfortunately, innovation feels too risky without seed funding from grant programs such as these. So I think that's why they should apply.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Yilmaz, or Burak Yilmaz and Tamara Chang, for speaking to us today about the Harmony Public School and KIPP Foundation competitive federal grants. Thank you both for taking the time to join us today.